Hey, business building warrior. Hope you're having a great weekend. If you're listening to this right when it comes out, it's on a Saturday. This is our weekend update. A weekend update, if you're new around here, just means we've gone back in time, maybe a few days, a few weeks, or a few months, and we've grabbed some inspirational, informational, helpful tips and strategies from recently popular episodes where we've typically interviewed a guest who's a success story from our community, and we put them on the stage and we talk to them about what's working, what isn't, what challenges they're facing, what strategies can they share with us, excuse me, about their business. So let's dive into this weekend update in just a moment, and you're going to hear the clips that we've compiled for you today. But before we do that, a couple things about this show. First, if you're brand new around here, you should know the vast majority of our episodes are, as I just described, interviews with successful students from our community. We've got a free Facebook group. As I'm recording this, over 72,000 people from around the world using the strategies we teach to build beautiful businesses online. Jump in there if you're not a member yet. silentjimdotcom has the link. The other thing that all of these people have in common that you've heard on the hundreds of episodes of this show are the fact that they're using the proven Amazon course strategies to grow their business. Now, inside the proven Amazon course, you will find dozens of helpful modules that can meet you where you are and take you to the next level. So we have students who have $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000 or more businesses who study the content in the proven Amazon course. And we have brand new people who've never sold anything online, and they're not even sure if this is a business that's right for them or not. We've got modules for everyone. The course grows with you. So that's the other thing that all of our guests on this show have in common is they are successful students of those strategies. So we're very proud of the fact that we've compiled hundreds of interviews with those students. If you want to see even more success stories, jump into our free Facebook group, like I mentioned, at silentjim.com. There's a link to the course. There's a link to our coaching, all that good stuff. Something else I want to put on your radar before we jump into the content for this weekend episode is the fact that July 6th through 8th of 2023, you want to circle that on your calendar and plan to join us in Columbus, Ohio, as hundreds of listeners to this show gather along with nearly all of our coaching team. And we have about 60 coaches. Hundreds of listeners to this podcast are successful coaching students, proven Amazon course students, all the sponsors who can't wait to be a part of the excitement. We're all going to go to Columbus, Ohio, July 6th through 8th for our 11th annual get together with over 40 breakout sessions for content for absolutely every stage of Amazon experience or e-commerce experience. If you're brand new, just checking it out, you're going to love this event. If you've got a $100,000 a month business and you're looking to expand, you're going to love this event. You need to be there. It's great networking. You're going to have a blast. If you've listened to a handful of episodes recently, you've heard us talking about it. If you have questions, get over to theprovenconference.com. Odds are we answer all your questions there. Again, the website. Remember these three words for our July 6th through 8th event. These three words, The Proven Conference. Go check it out. Hey, let's get into the weekend update. Can't wait to show you what we've got for you today. But it was so transparent. And I think you really will see that this is a significant episode. For those who've listened to many episodes, this is probably going to crawl its way up to the top of your list when we're done because it's just so transparent and so helpful. And it's heart-wrenching at times even. Just to think through putting yourself in the position that she's faced. And maybe you've got a tragic story as well. You've had difficult things happen in your life. We all do at certain points. This is going to be one of those shows that I hope really encourages you. There can be, and there is, in fact, light at the end of this dark road. And we want to be part of helping that financial burden be lifted as much as possible as we teach the creative strategies for using the internet. All right. God bless you, business building warrior. Let's jump over. I'm excited to introduce you to my new friend, Sue, and share this story.
I really started branching out. I started listening to the podcast, to the Silent Sales Machine podcast. As I was on my treadmill at the gym, I'd be listening to the podcast, and I started hearing some really different ideas that, were exciting to me. I started hearing about finding exclusive products and going to trade shows and talking to brands and asking them if they wanted to sell their products on Amazon. And so this was probably around 2018. 2017, I know we continued to sell high. We sold 149,000. We had a $32,000 profit on our Schedule C at that point. And then we still weren't taking any money out. We would continue to roll over to use that profit to buy more inventory until 2018. And that is when we finally invested in a nice car. That was huge for us to have a car that didn't break down. And we paid that out of the business. And that was like a big reward for all of this work. And it was a very nice car. So that was super fun for us.
That sounds like a great memory.
It was. And
I know the listeners can't see you, but that's a great smile as you were just recalling that car purchase. Sounds like a great day for you guys.
Yeah, it was doubly fun because our son, Jason, loved Infinities. He was obsessed with them, teenage boy. Mm-hmm. And he didn't know we were going to buy an Infinity when we were talking about, we didn't know we were going to buy one. Anyway, we came home with an Infinity and he was over the moon excited about that.
That's beautiful.
So I went to the trade show. I approached, I think, about 5 different brands. They were there and they were sharing their products. And I just walked right up to them in my complete naivety and asked them if they wanted to sell their products on Amazon. To my surprise, they were very enthusiastic. And I was very caught off guard because I wasn't prepared for them to say yes.
Yeah. And the world hasn't changed a lot since then, actually. I mean, we're talking 2018 now, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's still pretty much the general rule of thumb is a lot of brands don't know what to do with Amazon. Like, oh, you're an Amazon expert. I've got some questions for you. We've been struggling, here, they give you their list.
Yeah. Each one of these brands had tried to sell on Amazon and they really could not take the time to figure it out.
Yeah, that's not their business. They've got the things they're good at, and Amazon's not one of them yet.
Exactly. They're running their business successfully, and that's taking all of their time. Mm-hmm. And they just did not have the time to do it. So they were more than willing to sell me their products. And some of them had listings already up. One of them had a listing. They were going to go through Amazon retail and have, sell their products to Amazon. And they did not like dealing with them at all. Right. So they discontinued that and never started selling their products to them. So they had listings that were up and I was able to just, start selling their products on those listings. And those brands grew. They grew over time. They were pretty steady. And that really became a foundation for my business. They were the products that really, and still to this day, pay our bills,
Wow. So here we are in late 2022. And those relationships you established in 2018 with those products. Now, are you selling them on your account?
Yeah, I'm selling them on my account. None of them, I did offer to them to, basically be their brand manager and manage on their account. And none of them wanted to go in that direction.
Yeah.
So that was fine. It's actually maybe easier for me to do it all from my own account, but I do have to, purchase the inventory ahead of time.
Right.
And some of them I did have to create listings for. And so I learned how to do that. And that was a lot simpler back in those days, creating listings. But I think the thing is that I just went forward in faith and jumped into this and it was fun. I just took a chance and it went well. Another aspect from that was challenging was the relationships with the vendors and learning to talk to all different kinds of people because I had basically been in my homeschooling bubble. And I just want to mention that because I'm hoping that there's a homeschooling mama out there who needs to make a little income or maybe would make the difference in, can I stay home and homeschool my kids? And I'm telling you, I am just all for that and believe that the culture really is just trying. There is a war on a spiritual battle for our kids' hearts. And I'm going to share a little bit about my heartbreak in a minute here. But in spite of the fact that I was homeschooling and had my kid, our children raised in a godly environment, the culture, I still lost a child to the culture, basically. And so I just want to make it possible, if at all possible, if you have an opportunity to stay home with your kids, to homeschool your kids, because public schools are just an indoctrination camp to win your kids' hearts, and then it's not for good. And then I'm passionate about that. And
we've homeschooled all of ours as well, and I have some great friends, really good people who are in the public school system. But the odds are just so stacked against in so many significant ways now that the cultural drift away from those traditional values, I would call them biblical values, but just, those, the family value, mom and a dad and kids and, loving God, loving your country like that, we're drifting away from that pretty aggressively. Some people would applaud that. Okay, you do you, I guess, but that's what made our country great, in my opinion. And those who want to protect those kind of values and traditional values, it is a scary time to be a parent, for sure. And we didn't homeschool so much out of a sense of concern of where the culture was drifting at the time. We're on the tail end of homeschooling our 5 now. It was more so of who loves kids more than their mom, right? You're a confident, capable person. You can teach a kid to read. You can teach basic math. We'll stick them in middle school maybe someday, but here came middle school age kids. And we were thinking, you know what? This is kind of going great. The flexibility, the kids are way ahead of their peers in so many ways. Great friend groups, they're playing sports. Let's just do middle school. Maybe we'll think about high school. And then they came to high school age. None of them wanted to go. We didn't want them to go. We'd rather be able to travel and be flexible. And they were becoming very entrepreneurial. So here we are. All our kids went through, we homeschooled from the beginning. We never imagined that's how it would go, but now wouldn't trade it for the world. So just to echo what you're saying, and I completely agree. If you have the opportunity at all, if it's at all possible, you will not regret keeping those kids home and strengthening those relationships. And we've benefited in so many ways. And my wife is actually a big advocate for, she actually has a business consulting people who are considering homeschooling and helping them think through. Does this make sense? Can we afford it? What curriculum should I use? How do you handle this scenario? What about sports? All that stuff. She's got a little business where she has.
There's so much excellent curriculum available. It's just a matter of following instructions, and you can retain the values that the biblical values that you're raising your kids on. And that, like I said before, that was really, our desire. Our driving desire was for our kids to follow the Lord and to know Him like we did. So that was why we were homeschooling, and to have a Christian worldview. We wanted that for our kids, to be able to look out at the world and have discernment and see what's going on. And that takes time and effort. And we are losing so many kids to this culture. It's tragic. And I know that people recognize that. And I know that homeschool moms are probably intimidated to think about doing a business, and I can't do that. But if I could just make $500 a month, then maybe I could homeschool, And it was intimidating. I had to learn how to talk to people that they were not the type of people that I normally talk to. Let's just say that.
Right.
You know what? They were very.
You had to get out of your comfort zone a little bit, right?
Totally out of my comfort zone.
Business will do that to you. It will always do it to you. Your business stops growing at the moment you decide you've settled into a comfort zone. And that's a dangerous place to be. There's no such thing as steady state with business. It's declining or it's increasing. And if it's increasing, that means you're constantly getting out of your comfort zone. So that is the journey. It's a leadership journey. But I completely echo the sentiments you have. We have so many, we've got over 500 podcast episodes now, Sue, and so many of them are these incredible, I call them the greatest heroes of our community. Not only are they single moms, huge thing to carry, right? But they're homeschooling single moms who also have incredible businesses. I'm like, just doing any one of those is an accomplishment. Doing all of that, that's incredible. Those are the greatest heroes. And so if they can do it, if you've got a spouse, you got someone else, you got 2 of you there, and figure out a way to make it happen. And I'm very proud of the fact that we've now got a large contingent of folks who kind of represent that homeschool. Amazon e-commerce is helping pay the bills to make it happen. Our community has a strong core of those types of families in it. And I couldn't be more proud of the people who are accomplishing what you're basically challenging folks to consider.
Yeah. Some other things that I learned as we were growing was outsourcing. You talked about that a lot. So I got a prep team, hired Sue's crew, called it, and they've been with me now forever. I pay them generously because we live in California. And, they worked up over time, but they're so faithful and they are so good at what they do. And they keep our inventory so organized. They work quickly and efficiently. They don't make errors. And that has just been a huge blessing. There's no way that I could possibly prep and ship all of that inventory, ourselves. So they're very reliable. And it's another homeschooling mom. She's very glad to have the income, and our schedule is totally flexible around everything that she needs to do. And it was a homeschooling mom and her twin daughters. They have now grown up and married, and they still work occasionally when they have time. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is not an easy thing for you to recount and to share. And our prayer, we prayed together before we started this episode today because of how difficult some of this was going to be. And if you were being completely selfish, you would just kind of keep this to yourself and just kind of heal. But your hope that you shared with me was that this can help encourage someone and get them through a valley and get them walking closer with God, perhaps, that you felt like it was time for you to share this. So I just want to say thank you. And it's truly meaningful to me. And I think many, many others are going to be impacted by this. So thank you for sharing what you're about to share. And I don't know exactly what you're going to say, but I first know the highlights, and they're not good. So please continue.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned the battle for our kids' hearts and, the encouraging to homeschool. And even though we were doing all of those things, and we have a very sincere faith, a faith that was very active in our home. We read the Bible together as a family almost daily. And our youngest son was just a very active child. He needed to be physical. And so we would let him go for hours to the skate park and get that energy out. And unfortunately, that contributed to his demise. Now, he was very careful to stay out of trouble until he was 18, actually. His friends told us Jason he wouldn't touch drugs. He wouldn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, he ran into some heartbreaking issues for a young man. And when he turned 18, the culture stopped him up and he started using drugs very heavily. And unfortunately, it took him. We walked into his bedroom and found him dead in his bed. And he died from an overdose of fentanyl. He thought that he was taking a Percocet. And this is so prevalent out there right now.
Yeah.
That's one of the spiritual issues that is going on, is all the fentanyl that is poured into this country right now.
Yes.
He thought that he was taking a Percocet that would help him come down. He was addicted to cocaine. He wanted to sleep. So he took a Percocet. It wasn't a Percocet. It was a fake pill with fentanyl. And
I'm so sorry.
He died. So that was, of course, very difficult to deal with. And it was shocking. We were totally shocked by everything that happened,
Yeah. I can't imagine. And this is, this isn't decades ago. This was a couple of years ago. And so it's still fresh. He's
October 13th, 2019. And he was just shy of his 19th birthday. Tomorrow, actually, October 28th, he would have been 22.
And here you are sharing this story. Thanks again.
So we, in our grief, and grief is, I had never experienced a loved one dying, and then to have a child die, it was pretty debilitating. And there was a lot of shock and dismay. And, it was a complicated situation about who he was and what happened in his life. And to get him to that point, and a lot of soul searching. And that's why I just say, you just don't underestimate the value of the culture that it's playing on your kids.
Yeah, the power it has, and how careful we have to be, the precautions we need to take as parents to shield and protect and instill in our kids those things, and I got to believe that, your son, had it not been for the series of decisions and then the mistake, he would have come around eventually. right? Because the Bible tells us, raise up your child in the way they should go, and when they're older, they will not depart from it. But sometimes that middle period between them being raised right and then them getting older and coming back around, there's a window of time there that where they can really do some damage, unfortunately. And
there really is. And it's a well-known fact that young men's minds don't completely mature
correct.
until they're older.
Trust me. I tell my boys that all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm like, you're
and
still stupid. I know you don't think you are, but you trust me. The 40-year-old you right now is on my side on this issue.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I continued with business, crying all the way. I remember going into a retail store. It was, Q4. We kind of do a little bit more retail during the Q4 season.
Sure.
Last quarter of the year. And unfortunately, the tears didn't stop just because I was out in public.
Mm.
And the owner of the store was very concerned about me and wanted to just help me in any way she could. So she sold me more products, and it was rough. It was very rough, but we did persevere. But grief is a daily thing. It's part of our life, and it changed us forever. And it shook us up a lot, but we are coming back to health spiritually. So it's taken a while, and our journey wasn't over with his death. We continued to have some hardships, but it's interesting because going back to the business side, 2020 was an absolute boomer year for us. And my husband was able to retire in God's mercy. Shortly after Jason died, he was offered an early buyout from his job. And that, coupled with the fact that our business was thriving at that moment, enabled him to leave, AT&T and to come home. My husband was able to retire and to come home, and we had a fantastic year. That year we sold 842,000, and we actually pocketed 123,000. So that's about 15%. I like to share that because everybody always wants to know what the bottom line is. And that 15% is with an amazing accountant who, that was another thing that I heard from about outsourcing. Find the good financial help, find a good accountant. And so we actually looked through Dave Ramsey recommendations and found somebody local. Yeah. And the guy that we found was familiar with e-commerce. And so,
great.
When you're looking at your numbers, it's really hard to qualify and say what percentage it is, because there are so many benefits that don't show up in that bottom line.
Right.
Such as the fact that, we drive a car that is paid for by the corporation, those type of things. There's other benefits. We actually rent our warehouse space from ourselves because we own it, that type of thing. So it's valuable.
A good creative accountant can pay more than pay for themselves. Has that been your experience?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Right. I mean, it's one of the best pieces of advice I ever give is find, and you probably heard me say it, I've been saying it the same way for 15, 18 years, is find someone who's been doing it a long time. And even if they don't specialize in e-commerce, they'll know someone who does. I would take, rather than like a young e-commerce specialized accountant, I would take a guy who's been doing it 30 years.
Well, Jim, I got to tell you, it's funny, but our accountant was a homeschool prodigy, and he was a young man.
Well, hey,
he was working in his father's business, and he was a genius. You could just tell that by talking to him. So I had 100% confidence in him.
It sounds like he did a tremendous job for you. Just as a general rule, there's always exceptions, right? But I like to work with people and doing it a while, but then, along come these amazing young guys. And, one of my sons is running a consulting firm in his early 20s, and he has clients paying him a lot of money because he's kind of that same vein of, and actually you talked about being best friends with your kids. I was his best man at his wedding here.
That's so special. I love
how many dads get to do that with their son, right? I mean,
that's beautiful.
And it totally surprised me that was what he wanted to do. And
I've never heard of a dad doing that before. That's pretty cool.
It's a rare thing, they tell me. I haven't seen it a whole lot either, but it was very natural for us. We really are. We're that close because, that's the path we decided for our family. We gave up a little and we were rewarded and blessed.
Yeah.
so significant
And,
ways for it.
there's people who we went to high school with. They never married. They never had family. Their life seems so empty
Oh,
because
sure.
they don't have those relationships. They don't have children, have those relationships, and have that family. Really, family is what it's all about. So I just say invest in family.
But he does have, just to brag, one of the books, when I rattle off my 5-10 books that I really want folks to read to kind of start their entrepreneurial journey, one of them is Dave Ramsey's book, EntreLeadership. Have you ever read it?
No.
You might enjoy it. Because if you just listen to his radio show and look at his YouTube channel, he's hitting the mass market, people who have $30,000 of credit card debt and they're trying to figure out if they should get a second job or not. That's his primary market for his radio show. But he does focus in on small businesses as well. And he has his EntreLeadership podcast. And that book is actually full of pretty practical stuff. How he went from a card table in his garage to a $500 million business last time I checked, and the steps, the growth, things he had to, very practical. Like when you're hiring people, be sure to meet the spouse before you hire the person. Just real practical stuff like that. That
interesting
lessons he's learned along the way. And so they have a program for small business owners, and I actually was a part of that. That's how I kind of got to know him and meet him. I actually got to go to his house and all that, so it was pretty cool. But yeah, so I didn't want to completely throw Dave under the bus there. He's got some good small business content. Yeah. It's not just all about getting out of debt, but
but thanks for the guilt trip, Dave. No.
Exactly. You asked me about multiple income streams.
Yeah.
Relationships, using your voice, building relationships, always, just like you experienced. You only mentioned one trade show. You talked to 5 different companies and you started selling their products. And how much income has that generated? That's one day worth of conversations of getting out of your comfort zone. That's where the multiple streams will come from. Always be expanding the circle of people that know, like, and trust you by serving them well, by sharing what you know, by telling your story, by getting out there and meeting, by going to small business meetings and telling them very boldly. I think one of the most valuable statements you can make right now, as far as representing the skill set that you have, is to be in a group of business owners and say, I know how to sell things online. I know how e-commerce works. Does anybody have any questions? Can I be of help to anybody? I mean, you're going to have a line of people that want to talk to you and work with you and creatively offer solutions, back and forth. It's an incredible skill set. I think sometimes we play it off as being insignificant, but it's huge. It's hugely important to tell people what it is you do. And that will lead to other income streams. I've got a guy texting me just today who needs my services. He's seeking me out. Not because of this podcast, it's because of my e-commerce skill set, the same skill set that most of our listeners have. He's eager to work together and find some creative ways to make money together. And had people contact me, want to sell things on my eBay account because I've had some experience selling on eBay. I know what I'm talking about. And, I get a percentage. The opportunities are everywhere, but they're all relationship based. I would strongly encourage, versus saying, hey, you ought to go out and buy this crypto coin. That's what's exciting. Like, no, relationships. That's where I can confidently push you. And I see it all the time, Sue, the people who kind of drift into this isolation mode and they're trying to look for this next magic formula to make more money. Those people don't do so well. Kind of like the people you mentioned earlier. They're in their 40s or 50s and they never married and they have no family and they're looking around like, wow, life's kind of a dead end for me. Isolation does that in business and in your personal life. So what's the opposite of that? Relationships.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's that's been a challenge after, while grieving. That has been a huge challenge. But
of course. And that's part of the healing process, though. That has to ring true. You'll know you're getting healthier and healing and stepping more into what God has for you as you start bringing people into your life again and expanding the circle of people that bring, joy and camaraderie, right? Like that's healthy. God's plan for us isn't to isolate and to kind of slowly disappear into our own little box, right? I love Rabbi Daniel Lapin points this out all the time when he's on this topic. And he talks about, we study Genesis and from a Hebrew perspective of an Orthodox Jewish rabbi who studies these things in the original language they were written in. When God says it's not good for man to be alone, he created all of creation and said, it is good, it is good, it is good. And finally he said, you know what? That's not so good. Just a dude by himself. That's like, we always associate that with the male-female relationship. And it does cover that. But the language used in Hebrew specifically talks about in general, any of us being alone or isolating is not a good thing. Isolation is not good for temporary periods of time as we, pray or we meditate on God's word or we go off by ourselves to think about our future plan or whatever. Yeah, cool. But as a lifestyle, isolation, tragic.
Right.
And in
I
business,
think of the verse that says, "A child left to his own devices will bring his parents to shame."
ain't that the truth? When it gets real quiet in the house full of kids, something's up, right?
Yeah.
That's funny.
I'm kind of going more in the wholesale direction. It just is way more comfortable for us to do.
Sure. How do you approach wholesaling? In summary, what's your approach?
There's been a variety of different methods. Sometimes I will get a yes on a wholesale account that Amazon is selling on, and I'll find one product in their catalog that Amazon is not selling, and I'll grab that product and list it. And there's oftentimes I will just find one or two products that a small wholesaler has and go with that. I don't have any big, huge brand names, just small companies. And I have a little niche that I look for things in. And we have a little private label product that we're testing out this year, and it's kind of doing well. Unfortunately, our manufacturer retired, so now we're looking for a new one. But I think we're going to start to really kind of push that. I think it really is an underserved area and will really meet some needs. And that's something that this guy, Jim, talks about on his podcast. And so, trying to find ways to serve people. And I think we're going to actually push that a little bit, maybe do some advertising with that and get that out there a little bit. So,
right. And I know you talked about maybe starting a Shopify site as well on some of these products that have some momentum. And I think, we'd have to dedicate a whole segment to that. You're going to find it much easier to launch products on Amazon than you ever will on your own website. That's for sure. Customers are just so much, they're so much more comfortable shopping on Amazon than any other website.
Yeah. Interesting. This product has actually done better on Walmart.com than on Amazon.
So you're selling it there as well. There's
been a lot of communication with the customer about specifics and wanting advice about how to use it and so forth. So yeah, kind of perplexing little thing, but it's been enough to just let us know that, hey, we just actually ran out of our first batch. So
that's fascinating. So you attribute your success on Walmart to the fact that you're able to interact with the customer more easily. Is that what you just said?
I think that's what it is, because I mean,
tend to agree.
They seem to be comfortable, sending us a question. Hey, how do I do this? How many do I need? And so forth, that type of thing. And there's a lot of back and forth with that. So
yeah, it's not as restrictive as it is on Amazon, which is one of the challenges I've had for Amazon corporate for a while now. And they're starting to make some improvements there. But in their interest of making sure that nobody steals our customers, they've set up this brick wall between buyer and seller. And you may have heard me mention this before, and I've talked about it on multiple occasions. I won't go into the full depths of this lesson I'm trying to teach, but biblically, in the Hebrew tradition, where we get the concept of transactions in a free market, a transaction is the beginning of a mutually beneficial lifelong relationship. That's what a transaction is. It brings people together. It's the start of a friendship. It's a very healthy way to start a friendship because you both win, right? That's a good way to start off a new relationship. We both just won, right? We exchanged something of greater value than what we gave away. We both received something of greater value. But Amazon has set a brick wall between the two parties. So to the degree that your question earlier was, is Walmart going to catch Amazon? Well, if they figure out how to allow buyers and sellers to connect in a meaningful way and kind of build community there, they could make some serious ground because Walmart's still dragging its heels on that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Amazon's dragging its heels.
Amazon is, And the other challenge is just creating listings now on Amazon is just so difficult.
A little tricky.